Y is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Having to do that or having chipmunks in my garage. Like that's a big thing. I know I'm like a baby, but
How do you move them?
I don't know. I don't want to know.
You don't want to know?
No, because I don't want them to be dead.
No, like, yeah, okay. None of this is good news. All right, so we'll
Right,
just get, yeah.
right. So I
How did
need,
they get in the garage?
I don't
Is it
know.
like an underground garage or is it like a single
No,
car garage?
it's a two-car garage, but it's attached to my apartment. Like you drive right, like my apartment. Okay, my apartment building, there's like eight in the building. They look like condos, but
Right.
my apartment is upstairs, but I have my own entrance, and my garage is under my laundry room.
Okay.
My own garage. And I have one entrance where I pull my car in my garage, and then I walk into my door and walk up the stairs. Like I walk into my house or into
Right.
my closet is there, and I walk up the stairs in my laundry room. Or my front door, I walk up the stairs into my living room. So
Gotcha.
we're both in my apartment.
Multiple ways of egress.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So, and there are other like garages next to mine that go into other apartments.
But you're not sharing those two spaces with another apartment.
No, they're
This is just
mine.
yours. Okay. So these are your chipmunks.
They're my chipmunks.
Okay.
They could be my neighbor's chipmunks that went from their garages into my garages.
Mm.
But I,
Are they baby chipmunks?
well, this is the thing. I don't, the one I saw yesterday
Hmm.
seemed pretty large and was very like upset and very like didn't seem like he was familiar with living in my garage. Seemed like
Right.
he just got there, okay?
Mm. Can
So
I ask, what is the size of a chipmunk? I honestly do not know because my only reference is Theodore, and he's obviously
you
shorter and
don't have
squatter.
chipmunks where you live?
We must. I can't. Are they
They're
like,
everywhere in Michigan.
are
No, they're
they like,
little.
they're little. They're like
Yeah.
6 inches?
Yeah, the one yesterday was pretty big though. He was like this big.
Okay. So
Oh,
like
that's cool.
six to eight, like pretty
Yeah.
tiny. Okay.
So the
Well,
one yesterday seemed relatively big, like, and very frazzled. So
right.
when I pulled in my garage yesterday, I didn't see, I got out of the garage, I got out of my car.
Do you think you're misgendering this chipmunk? Should we go they them?
Sure.
Okay.
I didn't see them.
Okay.
And I got out, and normally I go right out of my car door into my house,
Laundry
right
room.
into the
Right.
garage, right.
Yeah, right.
But I didn't. I got out of my car, went out of the garage, and went to get my garbage can to bring it in. But then I realized, oh no, it was a holiday. I should leave it out one more day, right?
Hmm.
So then I walked back to go in the garage, and when I walked back, I see it like running in front of my car.
Hmm.
Means it's between my car and my door to go in my house, which means I can't
Ah,
get to my door.
right.
Which is
Gotcha.
when I freaked out and I was on the
Hmm.
phone with my aunt. And I'm like, why is there a chipmunk in my garage? Which means it could have gotten in just then, but I don't think so because it was freaking out. If it had just gone in, it wouldn't have been freaked out. It would have just left because it obviously had just come in.
But maybe not. Maybe it saw you and it was panicking because it was
Well, that's
like,
terrifying.
I can't get into the laundry room and this 50-foot woman is
Correct.
blocking my exit. I
I
mean,
don't block the entire two-car garage, but
well,
yeah,
no, but
right. Who is this person?
chipmunkily speaking,
Correct.
they them is concerned.
Terrified. Right.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
So then I left and went in the front door,
Right.
around to the front of the building, went
Hmm.
in the front door, and my aunt said, get it something to lure it out.
Okay.
And so I got
Put a
it.
glass of wine.
Well, I did. I got it wheat thins, peanut butter, and granola.
Okay, that's the picture you sent me where it
Yes,
looks like
instead
you
of just
were
pouring it on the plate and then pouring it in the on the ground far away from the garage, I made it little appetizers.
right. Well, you're not a monster. I mean,
No, I mean I was raised to be a good hostess.
right.
Put them on the ground far away from the garage, but it was not nowhere to be seen by the time I came back. I didn't see it anywhere.
Mm.
My other
Have
neighbors
you
were out and about.
have you ascertained that it is hasn't is still present?
Well, so what happened was I lingered around. I like put it out there, waited for it, didn't come out, didn't come out. Then I got in my car and I very slowly backed the Jeep out of the garage,
Sure.
waited around and kind of watched to see if it came out.
Smoked a cigarette. Okay.
Didn't come out, didn't come out, nowhere to be seen. So it seemed as though it had left.
Mm-hmm.
All sources seemed like it had left. So then I closed the garage door, went and parked my car outside.
Right.
So then at midnight, Dave came over to pick up Captain, came
Mm-hmm.
in my front door, went down to the garage, and allegedly looked all around looking for said chipmunk.
Right.
Said there's no chipmunk. Looked behind all the boxes, looked behind everything. He's like, there's no chipmunks. No,
Okay.
you're totally in the clear. You're totally good.
Chipmunk free in 2025.
Chipmunk free, right?
Okay.
So this morning, I go to the gym. I come back from the gym at 8 a.m. and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pull in the garage. And I open the garage door, and what do I see? Chipmunk
Chipmunk.
running all around. Seems to be a different chipmunk. Seems
Okay.
small. And then
Okay.
I see what appears to be maybe a second chipmunk that seems smaller running around. So I
Mm.
believe there is perhaps multiple chipmunks and maybe a nest of chipmunks in my garage.
Well, have I told you my fox story?
Is it going to upset me and make me feel like I am Snow White and all the animals live in my house?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So we have not this year, but the past 2 years had a mother fox come and I believe either birth or rehome about her 4 or 5 fox
Oh,
brethren,
yeah.
offspring, in our backyard. Now, our backyard backs up to the commuter train. It's a distance away. You can see it. You can kind of hear it. It's not. It doesn't affect the property values because I know that's what you're thinking.
It's not.
Okay, but there's woods behind our house, so they can also get that way. We have a fence, but apparently they can open the latch. So, and I'm going to be honest, these are not the healthiest looking foxes I've ever seen in my life. But there are multiple times when I would come out in the morning, like come downstairs in the morning, and this is before Frances moved in, so she does
Yes.
not need to go outside and hang out. Uh, but there would be two, three, four baby foxes just playing, chasing each other, hiding, doing fox stuff.
Mhm.
Once I came out and one of them was just standing on top of our shed, which like I never liked the shed. It came with the house, but
That's awesome,
you
though.
know,
Mhm.
suddenly you buy a house and suddenly you're a shed owner.
Right,
This
of
this
course.
is what it become. Uh, and my first thought was, how did that fox get up there?
Mhm.
And two, my thought was like, I think my our mortgage covers a shed. I'm paying for that shed actively, and for the next 20 some years of my life, I'm paying for that shed.
Mhm.
They've torn that shed to holy hell, by the way.
Of course, I'm sure.
So I called a let me finish before you react. I
Mhm.
called an exterminator
Mhm.
and I said, hey, here's the situation. We got some foxes, fox eye. I don't know what you call plural.
I don't know.
Anyway, I said, we don't want to kill them. We don't want to harm them. We would
Mhm.
just love it if they weren't right next to the pool.
Yeah.
And so he said, here's what I can do for you. He said, the big fox, the mother fox, that's I can trap her safely, $400.
Mhm.
I'm thinking to myself, it's a bit high, but okay, maybe we can haggle on this. Said I can get all the little baby foxes, 200 per.
Mm.
I can put them all in my truck. I can drive them a few hours away and let them go. But you know what's going to happen?
They're coming back.
They're coming back. He said, your best bet, one is to procure, I believe it's wolf urine that I bought,
Mm-hmm.
and spray that around the yard to try to dissuade them. But he said, really, the best thing you can do, the safest thing for all involved, mother, foxes, us, is give it 6 weeks. At that point, the baby foxes are old enough to move on. They will all get out of your yard. And
Okay.
that happened. One summer that happened. Next summer, I don't know if it's the same mother or different mother, came back with a whole new litter of baby
Mm-hmm.
foxes. Everyone in my house, apart from me, thinks this is the greatest thing ever. This is adorable. This is Fox TV. This is a Fox network they like watching.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, not thrilled. You kind of go out there if you like want to do anything with the pool, and you kind of just got to like make a lot of noise and wave your hands because you don't know what they're doing because they're only out in the evening post midnight and then right in the morning, which I'm assuming is just like she's trying to bathe and get these things to bed. Like
Right.
she doesn't have time for our nonsense. Um, but it's been coming more and more. So as of last summer, we did not have foxes in a yard. I'm thinking, great, foxes have moved on. They moved on to our neighbor's yard.
Okay.
Um, and they are getting a little, no one has seen them so far this season. But as of last year, they were getting a little more less afraid of humans. Our
Mm-hmm.
neighbor 2 doors down pulled into his garage, like clicked the button, opened the garage door, headlights right on a fox in his garage.
Mm-mm.
Um, at some point last summer, I was coming home around dusk. There's a fox walking down the dead center of the road. It felt
No.
like some sort of Sopranos sort of thing.
Mm-mm.
Uh, Last fall, we had a fox on our porch just
Mm-mm.
hanging out. So, two things. We got a very small dog that thinks she's intimidating.
Of course.
One, maybe that's the thing that's worked. They see this nutball just racing around and they're like, no. The other
Mm-mm.
thing we got were these little lights, and this might even work with, or there might be something similar for chipmunks. They are red lights. The shape they are in, the black plastic is molded to look like a very small, like fox head or wolf head. I don't know,
Okay.
but they're like yay big. They're like, you know, 2 by 4
Mm-hmm.
inches. They are solar powered. Okay, so that would not work in your garage.
No.
But what they do is when it gets dark, because they have one of those little things, um, the the eyes just start turn red. It's
Slowly.
2 red dots, yes, and they flicker a little bit. And so apparently, this says to the foxes that there's either fire nearby or a predator, and they need to get the hell out of there.
Okay.
Now, that maybe that worked for us. Our neighbors next door have a transistor radio out in the back that they just have set on a random station very low, and that's supposed to help. They were nice enough to say, if you can hear it, let us know. We'll turn it down. We'll also change the station if you'd like, which I thought was perfect.
That's
No
very nice.
notes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, can we get more soul in here? I just want like Luther Vandross playing all the time.
Yes, please.
Um, so everyone up and down our block are trying our own little home remedies of how to deter foxes from coming here. We are chalking it up to the fact that we have another creature that is using the backyard sometimes as their restroom, and perhaps this is the thing where foxes are just like that weird looking bald thing with the snaggle tooth I don't want to go near. Or maybe it's the red lights. Maybe it's the afternoon I spent spraying a jar of wolf urine, which now is in my Amazon shopping cart, and the You May Like has gotten really messed up.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, what I was told was that there's no reliably safe way, humane way to remove these animals and to rehome them. But they do eventually, you know,
Mm,
I can't wait to get out of this house, they
yeah,
all
but
go off to college and they move. I'm just so fascinated, the like basically, how do you create an iconic character that has lived on for generations? It's been such a huge
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And 37 years since that movie came out. And I am in awe of the fact that those characters are still known to people. They're still relevant. They're still contemporary. I still get probably 30 or 40 pictures every week of young women dressed as Jessica Rabbit. And believe me, if I had known when I was 18 years old that there would come a time in my life when we could be getting 35 pictures of beautiful redheaded women wearing low cut red dresses, I would have written the book a whole lot sooner. But I'm in awe of how those characters um, have have continued to exist and continue to be relevant. Yeah.
And it's so fascinating because the behind the scenes story of getting the first book, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, out is insane, and is
Yeah.
like this story of dedication. And was it 100 publishers passed on it?
Yeah, it was 110 actually.
Who's counting?
right.
Um,
Well, I was.
yeah,
I
yeah.
used to, in those days, I don't get many rejects, but nowadays, I'm guessing they all come by email if you get them today. But back then, you got rejects in the mail. And my wife used to call my trip out to the mailbox every day the daily disappointments, because I'd go out and come back with, 5, 6, 7 rejects. And I kept telling my editor, I mean, my agent, Bill, what's going to happen here? He said, oh, eventually we'll find it a home. It's a brilliant book. We'll find it a home. And, it kept getting rejected for the same reason over and over and over again. Um, there was no category on the shelf for this book. It wasn't a regular fiction novel. It wasn't a regular mystery. It wasn't a children's book. It wasn't fantasy. It wasn't science fiction. There was no category for this on the bookstore shelves. And the marketing department was always the one who rejected it. They always said, we can't sell this book. So 111th submission, it landed on the desk of a woman named Rebecca Martin, who was an editor for St. Martin's Press. And she had just published a big bestseller for them. And so the president of the company gave her a vanity project. He said, look, the next book you publish, the next book you edit, your choice, whatever you want. Find yourself a book that you think will be fun and edit it, and we'll do it. So just at that time, Roger Rabbit crossed her desk and she read it and loved it. All editors loved it. So she took it directly to the president of the publishing company and said, hey, this is the book. I want to edit. You told me I could edit anything. This is the one I want to edit. So he said, okay, I'm going to take it home and we'll read it tonight. I'll get back to you in the morning. We'll talk about it. So he took it home, came back the next morning, called Rebecca into his office and said, Rebecca, I read this book. And I told you that you could edit any book you wanted, but you can't edit this because I can't print it, because I can't sell it. There's no category for this on the bookstore shelves. I can't sell this book. And Rebecca stood up to the plate and said, hey, look, you told me I could edit any book I wanted. You publish this book or I quit. And so they published the book, albeit in very, very, very small quantities. I think less than 5,000 copies.
Wow.
And yeah, and people always ask me, well, not always, but a lot of people ask me, if you had a time machine and you could go back in time and change anything or do something in a previous time, what would you do? Well, I would go back to 1981. And I would buy all 5,000 copies of that book because they were priced at, I think, $2.99. And if you can find one on eBay today, it's well north of $500. So I would
Wow.
have bought all 5,000 copies. I would have put them in a barn somewhere,
Mhm.
and I would haul them out today, and I'd be selling them, and I'd be living in a castle in Spain and not having to talk to you guys. I'd be
Lower, like, yeah,
Yeah.
plebes like us. I
not
get
that I
it.
don't enjoy talking to you guys. Okay.
No offense,
it's
none
okay.
taken. Yeah.
That's amazing.
How do you keep the faith with that? Because, like you said, it's something that is so out of the box that the other writers are working in, and everyone's coming back and saying it's cool, but I can't sell it. How do you keep that faith to be like, no, this is something that I think will catch on?
Well, you have to know my philosophy of writing. I write to amuse myself. I don't write for the money. I don't write for the fame. I don't write for the glory. Um, I just write to amuse myself. And when I was writing Censored Roger Rabbit, I was working as an advertising executive, and I was getting up at 4 in the morning, working from 4 to 8, and then going to work and doing my regular job. But that 4 to 8, that was my fun time. I mean, I wrote that book just to amuse myself, just to have a good time. And um, yeah, I mean, it didn't sell, but I didn't really expect it to, because it was really wackadoodle kind of book. There was nothing like it that had ever been written before. Um, and I was, yeah, I was disappointed, but um, like I say, I don't write for the fame, and I don't write for the glory. I don't write to be a bestseller. The other interesting thing is that, if you go to Wikipedia and look me up, you will see that Wikipedia classifies me as the premier American humorist, right?
All right.
I don't think I'm that funny. I, I write what I consider to be dead serious fiction. I mean, it's, Roger Rabbit. Who says that Roger Rabbit was all about prejudice and the attitude of humans who feel they're superior to toons, and toons who have to overcome the fact that they're always treated as inferior beings. And that was a pretty serious book. But people read my stuff then and now, and they say, "Wow, you're the funniest guy I have ever read." I picked this up, I started laughing, and I didn't quit laughing until the end. And I don't know where that's coming from, because uh, that's not what I'm writing. I don't know.
It's really interesting you say that, because I just finished, I read the Jessica Rabbit book, the most recent one.
Oh yeah,
Uh, and yeah, it's dead serious. And the scenarios and all the situations in it are insane, but it is treating this all with such a just straight-faced, this is what's happening, this is
yeah,
what's going on.
yeah. My editor on that one, that was a fun book for me to write. I've written 3 other Toontown novels: Who Censored Roger Rabbit, Who Plugged Roger Rabbit, and Who Whacked Roger Rabbit. And I felt that Jessica needed her own book. Um, so hard book for me to write. Being a guy writing a book
Hmm.
about a woman who is the essence of woman, who is one of the premier sex symbols of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And I wanted to make sure that I did not overly sexualize her, that I did not, um, uh, denigrate any of her intellectual abilities. I wanted to make sure that she was smarter than all the guys around her, and it's hard to do. So I always have beta readers who read my books before I publish them, just to make sure that I haven't gone off the rails. So for this one, I got 35 of the most militant feminist women I could find. I mean, real. And I said, here, read this and let me know if I've done anything to trivialize Jessica Rabbit. And the comments were almost unanimous. They all said something on the order of, Jessica Rabbit in this book is exactly the kind of woman that I've always wanted to be. So, it was good. It was a success. And I think Jessica will be having more adventures. The book is filled with what my editor called, to sanitize it, spit moments, because you are reading it and you think it's going in one direction, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh, spit! That's not one. Where did that come from?" That's a totally different, a totally different viewpoint. So I had a lot of fun. That was my pandemic book. I wrote that one during the pandemic, and I had a lot of fun writing it. Now working on a fourth Roger Rabbit, Eddie Valiant Toontown novel, and then we'll probably do something else with Jessica after that one's done.
Do you ever tire of them? Do you ever think it's time for them to just hang back out?
Right off.
And
You could say it, die.
no, they can never die. Never die. Just
No,
Toontown for a while. Don't want them to die.
well, no, they don't. I sometimes enjoy writing other kinds of novels and short stories. I've written a ton of hard-boiled private eye fiction, but all of the private eye fiction that I have written always has a talking rabbit in it. And so I decided I wanted to write a hard-boiled fictional detective story that was just a straight hard-boiled fictional detective story, the kind I used to read when I was a kid. The Dashiell Hammett, Mickey Spillane kind of thing. So I just finished a hard-boiled detective story. But if you know me, you know that everything I write's got to have a twist. So the character, the detective Del Strong, has a girlfriend who is a high fashion, ex-high fashion model. She now works as the administrative assistant for a kind of a sleazy Boston criminal attorney, the kind of guy who would have defended OJ or whatever. The whole book is set in Boston in all my favorite places so that I can go in and get free stuff.
There you go. That's how you do it.
And so Del has the girlfriend. Del also has a boyfriend who is a Boston cop. And when you get to the end of the book, you realize that you have no idea if Del Strong, the private eye, is a man or a woman.
That's a really cool. That's a neat.
An idea that is right for the times, as my editor says. And boy, that one I had to send out to 40 beta readers because I really didn't know if I could bring that off. But I did, and it worked. It worked really, really well. Probably going to be an 8-episode TV series, and right now we're discussing how to do it. The producers and the director kind of want a pansexual actor or actress to play the role. I want to do it so that you actually never see the detective. The detective is always filmed from behind, from the detective's point of view. You might see the detective through a bottle of whiskey, see the detective reflecting a mud puddle, but you never
Lady in the Lake style.
Yeah, exactly. It's been done before, so it's not groundbreaking. But
that movie was 60, 70 years ago, so
it hasn't been done lately.
Yeah, exactly. So
everything that's old is new again. So we'll see. But I had a lot of fun doing that. I just finished that one, and now I'm now I'm actually doing a sequel to that one and doing the, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth Toontown novel.
Love it. That's really cool.
That's
I
such
feel
a
like the first season at least has to be done the way you do it. You imagined it because that's the twist, right? At the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard. I don't deal with the mechanics of of publication and audiobooks and stuff like that, but it's hard because when you do the audiobook, who's going to read it? It's going to
That's
be the
true.
woman, and it has to be one or the other. So I have suggested that it is someone, a voice actor, who can do it in a uh, non-specific voice, and that the voice actor not take credit, which is, kind of. I mean, Kathleen Turner didn't take credit for doing Jessica Rabbit in the movie, and her choice. She didn't know if the movie was going to be any good, so she decided to do what Darth Vader did in Star Wars when he did. When James Earl Jones did in Star Wars when he voiced Darth Vader, he didn't take credit for it, so that if the movie was a bomb, nobody would know it was him. And if the movie was a success, he could come out and be the voice of Darth Vader. And she did the same thing. So, I think that the reader for the audiobook on this one should be, X, and he shouldn't.
right.
He
Yeah,
shouldn't
it's
know. Yeah,
mysterious.
there should be
It
no
keeps it
clue.
fun. And it keeps and there are so many actors that can do that.
Mhm.
And it's just an interesting, at the end of the day, doesn't matter.
That's
And I
exactly
think the
what
Well,
takeaways,
does it.
that's a interesting point you bring up, because all of my beta readers, and I had 40 beta readers on this one. All of the beta readers said almost the exact same thing. They said, at first I tried to figure out, is this a man or a woman? It's just a man or a woman. And then I realized at the end of the day, it didn't matter. It did
yeah.
not matter. And it doesn't. It doesn't. So
And when you talk about who censored Roger Rabbit and all the things that are bigger issues that you're addressing in that, I mean, this very similarly is like, think about it for 2 seconds and oh, wait a second, maybe, the way we're treating some people perhaps should be a little bit different.
yeah.
Right.
And the thing that's interesting too, I mean, that is such to use a very like agency kind of phrase, like high concept. And they always say, like, as a writer and as a creator, when you're signing away the rights to things, that you have to just make peace with the fact that your book will still be on the shelf afterwards, and whatever anyone else does with it is what they do with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's a point that I tell all young writers, uh, that, um, when you publish your book, it is generally you and the editor. And, you and the editor kind of argue about how things should be structured here, there, whatever. I always take my editor's advice because I think they know more than I do about that kind of stuff. But once it gets into the movies, I mean, once a movie studio says, hey, I want to make this book into a movie, you lose control. And at that point, it becomes a committee decision. I've had people, some of the scripts I've written, movie scripts I've written, I've had uh, executives who have taken them home and showed them to their nanny or one time their gardener. And I tell young writers that if you do want to sell your book to the movies, and most writers I think do, you have to accept the fact that it is no longer your vision, and it probably is no longer your vision and your concept, that a bunch of people are going to take it and do stuff to it and screw it up. And if you're willing to live with that, well, you're going to have to be content with taking the money and hoping that the movie doesn't ruin your reputation. I was lucky because they kept me involved in the movie from start to finish, and they liked my vision, they liked my ideas, and they had to change the movie from the book, because the book's a book story and the movie had to be a movie story.
Right.
We had to change the story, but I'm okay with that. They kept the things that were most important to me, the characters, Eddie, Jessica, Baby Herman, Roger. They kept the concept of cartoon characters living in a human world. And I'm delighted with the way the movie turned out. Couldn't be happier. Um, I always tell people that, read the movie, read the book,
Mm.
watch the movie. They're two separate things. Most people like the book a little better than the movie and wish that the book could have been more like the movie, or the movie could have been more like the book. Um, I, um, I had a problem writing the sequel novel. I had no intention of writing a sequel novel. I was one and done with Who Censored Roger Rabbit, because if you've read it, you know that the ending does not lend itself to a sequel. The rabbit dies. I'll let that out of the.
If you haven't read it by this point,
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone's ruined it for you
and
anyway. Yeah.
so it did not lend itself to a sequel, but there was, the movie was such a success, and I was besieged with offers for a sequel from publishing houses. When I finally wrote the sequel, I had 12 publishers bidding on it. All of them had rejected the first one once. Three
There
of
you
them had
go.
rejected the first one twice, and one of them had rejected the first one 3 times. So, it comes around. But
Off the list.
I was, I had a problem with the sequel because 50 billion people probably had seen the movie. And so that was their concept of Roger Rabbit. 12 people had read the book, and that was, my mom and my 5 aunts and 5 other strangers I didn't know. So, I had to decide whether to be true to my original vision, which was dark and foreboding and, I don't think very funny, although a lot of people thought it was funny, or go with the Disney version. And I chose to stay with my own darker version, although I did make some changes in my original book. Who Censored, the characters were comic book and cartoon strip characters, and they talked in word balloons, which I had a lot of fun with because I like playing with them. A character would put up a word balloon, and if he turned around, his word balloon would turn around with him. And so you either had to
Of
learn
course.
read in reverse or go around to the front of him and read forwards. And characters could take their word balloons and detach them and hit you over the head with them. Or when a tune gun fired, it produced a bang balloon. And then bang balloons are very heavy and very brittle, and they fall to the ground and they smash like a Delft plate. But a good forensics team can gather up the pieces and put the bang balloon back together. And then if you can find the gun and fire it, and you can get the bang balloon, and if the 2 bang balloons match, that's the gun that was the murder weapon. So I had a lot of fun with that. And of course, we couldn't do that in the movie.
Right.
We tried early on, but when we had characters who would put up a word balloon, the action stopped, and the audience had to read the word balloon, and it became a silent movie. So that had to go. But I wanted to keep the word balloons for the books because I had so much fun with them.
Yeah.
So in the sequel novel, I did let the characters become stars of cartoons, live action cartoons. And they have the choice of speaking in word balloons or speaking verbally. Toons tend to speak in word balloons because it's easier for them. They don't have to put up as much effort as they do to speak vocally. The only one who always speaks vocally and never puts up a word balloon is Jessica, because, well, just because. All right.
Right.
So, the second one, I had to decide what kind of a tone to go for, and what the characters were going to do. The third one, Who Whacked, I went back to the original premise. It's as dark and noirish as the first one, and I did leave the characters as movie stars because I kind of like the concept. Um, but you know, the, there's a there's a problem you deal with when you're a writer, especially if you produce something that is phenomenally successful, because I guarantee you that more people will see the movie than will ever read the book. And so if you're going to do more books in that genre, uh, you're going to have to decide how how to compromise, and if you want to compromise. And I chose to compromise a little bit, but not go the whole route. I did not Disneyfy the books from there on.
You mentioned the thing about if if you had a time machine, you could go back and buy up all the first editions, which is
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah.
Hey, if you could go back and rewrite the first book or see what you're doing in the first book as a writer from a creative side of things, and perhaps you just answered the question, is there anything where you would just say, I'd be really careful with this. You're opening a whole can of worms that's going to be a
Oh,
real pain as a writer in books two, three, four, etc.
yeah. No, it's an interesting thing because you actually nowadays you do have that option. Um, my books are all they all come out in various versions. I think the Who Censored Roger Rabbit paperback is in its 32nd printing or something like that. And with every printing, they give you the option to change whatever you want to change. So I'm always looking at galleys of like censored. I look at galleys of
Hmm.
censored periodically, and different versions. I just did a German version, a Japanese version, and a French version. Um, and I guess I could change them if I could read Japanese, German, and French. But
Right, yeah.
in the English version, they always say, "Is there anything here you want to change?" And I always go through and reread it and say, "Well, is there anything here I want to change? Is there anything I can do to make this book better?" And I I never change anything. Um, and maybe I'm just being conceited and saying, well, it's as good as it's going to be. I don't think so. I think the Who Censored Roger Rabbit particularly is one of the best books I'm capable of writing. I don't think I could ever write a book as good as that, or I can come close, but that was a perfect book for me. And there's just nothing in there that I would change, and I have the opportunity, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't. You know,
Hmm. How far into the process of dealing with the studio, dealing with Robert Zemeckis and I guess Spielberg and everyone else who was involved in Roger Rabbit, did you start to kind of go like, oh, there's something here that this could really connect with people?
oh, well, it started out with Roy Disney. I mean, I got a call at home one day. I sold a book to send to St. Martin's in 1980, and it didn't come out until 81. So uh, in 1980, this was before the book came out, I got a call at home, my home phone. And the guy on the other end says, "Is Gary K. Wolf?" I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Oh, hi, this is Roy Disney. I'm with the Disney Corporation." And
You don't say.
yeah, right. Roy
Yeah.
Disney called me home. That's close. He's one of my friends having me off. I said, "Who is this really?" He said, "No, it's really Roy Disney." I said, "And I just read your book, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, and I wondered if you'd be interested in letting the Disney company make it into a movie." And I said, "Yeah, right. The book hasn't even come out yet. How'd you get my book?" Well, I found out that somebody at St. Martin's, never found out who, and I tried desperately. I wanted to kiss her or him full on the lips, but somebody sent a copy of the manuscript to Disney and said, "Hey, we're going to publish this book in '81, and we think you'd be interested in doing it as a movie." And they were. They, they were in 1980, 81. They were a second-rate movie production company. They had
Yeah.
They had passed on Star Wars. They'd been offered E.T. and they passed on E.T. They'd been offered Jaws. They passed on Jaws. They were really a second-rate movie company. They were making The Nutty Professor and Herbie and the black hole and the black cauldron that disappeared down the black hole.
Mm.
They were making movies that were the second half of double features, and there were soon going to be no more double features. So they were going to be out of luck. So they saw Roger Rabbit as something that they could do to catapult themselves back into the forefront of movie production studios. They also wanted the characters. I mean, if you go down any city street, any place in the world, you'll see everybody wearing T-shirts and sweatshirts with Disney characters on them. And their characters were getting a little old. You know, that Mickey, who was their flagship character, was now
He's got to
wearing a
pack it in.
tuxedo and,
Yeah,
you know,
just
white
come on,
tennis
loosen
shoes.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, and you couldn't have fun with him anymore. You know, you could have fun with Donald, but you couldn't understand what he said. So you know, that was kind of a hopeless cause. So they saw Roger, Jessica, Baby Herman as new characters they could merchandise. And, you know, I really didn't think the movie was filmable because I had written it as the best book I was capable of writing. I
Right.
didn't think it was filmable. But if they were willing to try, and I mean, frankly, they gave me more money for the rights than I'd made on everything I'd written up to that point. Sure, let them try. So that was 80, and from 80 to 85, they pretty much proved me right. They really couldn't put the thing together. They just didn't have the skills, they didn't have the technical expertise. And to be honest and to be fair to them, a lot of the technology that was used in that movie, we invented for that movie.
Mm.
It was invented in 1985 to 1988 for that movie. So, you know, they didn't have the technology, and they tried putting some live action animation stuff together, and that was when Pee Wee Herman was voicing the rabbit, and it just didn't look good. It didn't look right. The characters didn't look real. They looked stuck on. And so finally, one day, Roy Disney came to me and said, "Hey, look, we're not having much luck with this live action animation thing. So what would you say if instead of cartoon characters, we had characters in costume like we have at Disneyland?" And I'm thinking, oh, hell, I'm going to have the Disney stable. I'm going to have Fred McMurray as Eddie Valiant. I'm going to have Haley Mills as Jessica, Dean Jones as the rabbit, and Kurt, what's his name, as Baby Herman.
That'd be amazing. Kurt Russell's Baby Herman.
Yeah, so I said, you know, don't you think that compromises the premise just a little bit? And Roy said, yeah, I guess you're right. So they went off, and I don't know if they ever would have gotten it right, but in 1985, a couple of things happened. Michael Eisner came in, and Roy Disney got pushed upstairs. So Mike came in and brought with him Jeff Katzenberg, who was his number two at, I think, Paramount. And they had put together a string of blockbuster movies. And the first thing that they did was throw out all the movies that Disney had in development, because that's what got the studio in trouble in the first place. So they threw all those out. They only kept one movie, and that was Roger Rabbit. And so they did something that nobody at Disney had ever done before. They brought in an outside producer to do a Disney movie, and that was a little known guy named Steve Spielberg. So, you know, Steve Spielberg comes in, and they introduced me to Steve Spielberg, and he read the book when it first came out, and I always thought it would be a great movie. So to show you the difference that Steve Spielberg makes in Hollywood, in 82 or 83, Roy Disney went to Warner Brothers and said, "Hey, we're making this live action animated movie, and we'd like to have Bugs Bunny do a cameo." He would come out, he would say, "What's up, Doc?" He'd bite a carrot and, you know, then walk off. What do you think? And Warner Brothers looked at Roy Disney and said, "Get lost. You know, there's no way that Bugs Bunny is ever going to be in a Walt Disney movie. It's just never going to happen. So in 1986, when Steve Spielberg went over to Warner Brothers and made the identical request, we're doing a live action animation movie. Can we have Bugs Bunny for a cameo? Warner Brothers said, of course. Or take them. What about Porky Pig?
Right.
You
want Daffy Duck?
Roadrunner,
Yeah.
Wile E. Coyote, and so 70 Sam, and oh my God, take them all.
Yeah.
So the only codicil was that Bugs, being a cartoon superstar, had a contract, and his contract specified that he had to be in every scene with Mickey Mouse. They were co-equal superstars, so you could not have Mickey Mouse on screen without Bugs being on screen too. And they had to have the exact same number of words of dialogue. So when you watch the movie, you can time it and you can count the words, and they're identical. Now, it didn't work the other way. In the early scene where Eddie is first on the maroon cartoon studio lot, Bugs walks by all by himself. So it's okay for Bugs to be there, but when Bugs and Mickey were there, you gotta have them both. And Steve brought in Bob Zemeckis, and Bob Z had also read the book when it first came out, and they had offered him the directing role back in '81, and he turned it down because he didn't think that Disney had the horsepower. But when Steve got involved, well, he came back and said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it now." So they both valued my vision and valued my creativity, and I got involved with a lot of the meetings to figure out the story and that kind of stuff. And there were times when I would be sitting in a room with 35 of the most creative people I've ever met in my life, and they're all throwing out ideas on how to make my story funnier. And I'm thinking, where were you guys back in 79 and 80 when I was writing the book at my kitchen table? If I'd had you then, I'd have had a Pulitzer Prize winner. So, I was involved, and it became obvious that once Steve Spielberg got involved and once Bob Z got involved, that this was going to be a project that was going to be done right. And then when they brought in Dick Williams, who was just an incredible animator, won the Academy Award for the Pink Panther, and Dick animated that opening scene himself. Every cell of that opening scene he animated himself, and he did it to the nth degree. He made it purposefully difficult. In fact, not just difficult, but difficult to the logarithmic 10th percent, whatever, so that when other animators saw that, their jaws would drop because it was just amazing. So when you see that scene, the opening scene, look at the floor of the kitchen where Roger is running around. The floor is black and white tile. Now, there's no reason for that to be black and white tile. If it had been all white or all black, it would have been far easier to animate. Because it was black and white tile, and because the tiles are at an angle, every single cell, 24 cells per second, every single cell had to be redrawn from a slightly different angle. And every single tile had to be redrawn from a slightly different angle. And it was just incredibly difficult. And then to compound it, he put Roger's reflection in the tiles. So just mind blowing. And when I saw that, Dick was sitting there showing it to me and flipping his pages, and I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. Because I love cartoons. I grew up watching cartoons, and this is just incredible. And then when they did the scene, when I saw it finished, I saw it filmed, and then I saw it finished, where Eddie and Dolores and Roger are in the storeroom, and Roger bumps the lamp, and the lamp is going back and forth, back and forth. And when you see that in finish, the shadows are going back and forth across Roger, and Roger's shadow is going back and forth. And just an incredibly difficult piece of animation. So hard that now when animators do a really difficult bit of animation, they refer to that as bumping the lamp.
Hmm.
And you know, when I saw that, I said, you know, this movie is going to be something special, and you know, it was. Yeah, I have no regrets about the way that movie turned out. I wouldn't change a thing. I do have one regret. I do have one regret. Bob Hoskins. Yeah, you know, everybody wanted Harrison Ford, Freddie Valiant. He couldn't work it into his schedule since it was going to take like 5 years, 3 years. And then we went to Paul Newman, same thing. So finally, you know, we gave a tryout to this British guy, Bob Hoskins. And I said, you know, that guy's a British. How's he ever going to bring off a prototypical LA private eye American
Hard-boiled,
accent?
yeah.
But by God, he did it, and he stood up on a bare stage and did his audition and made you believe that Rabbit was there. And you know, every day he would come to the studio and work on a bare stage and make you believe that Rabbit was real. When the chimpanzee, the gorilla, threw him out of the club. He was, of course, on a wire, but he was dropped into the boxes. And when he dropped, he hit wrong and broke 3 ribs. And we're saying, oh, geez, you know, Hoskins is going to be out for 6 weeks. But by golly, he came the next day all taped up saying, hey, you know, do the lines. And my only regret in the whole movie is that Bob Hoskins never even got nominated for an Academy Award. And that was the most incredible job of acting I've ever seen anybody do, because he was making it all up in his head. And I think the problem was that he made it look too easy, that nobody really realized just how hard what he was doing really was. When he was handcuffed to the rabbit, those handcuffs were on a spring, so that he was not only controlling his hand, but he was controlling the rabbit's hand. So he had to remember how to move his hand, and then also how to move his wrist so that he moved the rabbit's hand. I mean, incredible guy. Love him to death, and I miss him terribly. You know, he went too young. But that's my only regret of the whole movie.
It's amazing. Do you ever get tired of these characters?
Oh no, no, never.
No.
You know, I've come to know them. You know, I'll tell you, Bob Hoskins told me that by the end of the movie, he could see Roger. And Roger was real to him, and his son was angry because Hoskins was spending more time with this rabbit than he was with his son. And it took about, according to Bob, it took about 6 months before the rabbit finally disappeared. And that's the way they are to me. I mean, they're very real. Writing Toontown novels is very tough for me. It's hard work, because in order to do it, I have to go into Toontown and, you know, kind of look around and see what's there, and, you know, come up with stuff that I haven't come up with before. It's hard work. It's really, really hard work. In the novel I'm working on now, I've come up with a whole new category of tune that I think is really kind of interesting, and it's going to be kind of fun. I don't want to tell you what it is, because somebody in Hollywood will steal it, but
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of fun. And you know, I'm always coming up with new neighborhoods that I can visit in Toontown, things where things you know, where things happen, things could be fun. And I'm still playing around with word balloons. You know, I've come up with a character that produces a word balloon that if you grab the word balloon and inhale it, you get a psychedelic high, you know, from the contents of the word balloon. And, you know, stuff like that. And that's just that's a throwaway in the book. And I love it. I love doing that kind of stuff. I have fun. It amuses me. And, you know, it's all about me. It's all about, you know, making me laugh. I still get up at 4 in the morning, and I still write from, I write a little longer now. I write from 4 to 9, but It's all about keeping me amused.
That's great.
It's wonderful.
I mean, that's what more could you want, right? To just be able to amuse yourself and then consequently amuse the world.
Yeah, I'm lucky because people seem to like what I write, and people seem to think it's funny, and people, good, good, capable people, take my work and do other things with it, movies, TV shows, whatever, and life is good.
For more information and to order copies of Gary's books, check out his website, garywolf.com.
Why the Podcast is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts because we're shallow and need constant validation. For more information, you can check out our website, whythepodcast.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hedquist and myself from our world headquarters located on the second floor of the professional office building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?